Good morning, everyone. I pray that your Sunday was filled with spaces and places where you were able to experience joy, where you were able to experience happiness, where you were able to laugh. Maybe you tasted something that tasted really good, your special Sunday meal. Maybe you were able to walk in the sunshine if that was available for you wherever you may live across this globe. And just as a side note, the authorities are stating that vitamin D can be really helpful in not necessarily preventing you from getting COVID-19, but helping your body to build up resistance. So if you were to be able to get it, you'd be able to fight it a lot stronger. And so for those who may not necessarily have access to sunshine or their ability to walk, or they may live in very dense urban areas, you can take a supplement. And so that was just my side note. This week we are going to focus on fear. And an acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. An acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. Meaning the F stands for false, E for evidence, A appearing, R real. Fear. It's when we are afraid of something based on the evidence that may or may not be true. And for those of us who may have experienced traumas, this is a large part of what we experience. We will focus a little bit more about how your childhood could impact you. We're going to talk about the fear of success. Now that you're grown, we're talking about the fear of moving outside of what's familiar, getting outside of your comfort zone, fear of using your voice, all those things that hold us back. And I want to share, for me, I've always been full of fear. One of my fears, which really may not make sense to most people, and it doesn't make sense to me now, but there was foods I was afraid of. When I was growing up, I did not taste pizza until I was probably in my late teens. Now imagine that. Growing up in New York City that has some of the best pizza in the world, and I never tasted it because I was afraid that it would not taste good. And I was basing my fear basically on how it looked. False evidence appearing real. Now there's some other things that we may be afraid of. A couple of years ago, my daughter did a skydiving. She went skydiving for the first time. That is something I doubt I will ever do because I have a fear of heights. But even with my fear of heights, I have learned to challenge myself in some areas. So I've been ziplining twice. I have done some things that involve me going up higher. So what I want to share with you, what I will be sharing with you this week, is identifying our fears, where they may come from, and to give some suggestions in how we can move through them. And moving through them is what I really want to focus on today. Because I believe as human beings, we will always have things that may make us apprehensive. We will always have challenges in front of us that make us pause. We will always have experiences or potentials for experiences that we may say, oh, I'm afraid, I'm scared to do this, or starting a business, going back to school, whatever that may be. And one of the things I want you to really get as we talk about this week is that you can do things even if you're afraid. The idea is not to get rid of the fear, it's how do we move through it? How do we challenge the fear? I can guarantee you that both times that I went ziplining, that I did it afraid. But my motivation was my desire to complete it, my desire to do it was greater than the fear. The first time was in Haiti, and we had stopped as a part of a cruise that I had been on, and we went ziplining, and again, I'm afraid of heights, but what my motivation was, this particular zip line, you zip lined across water. And I really wanted to be able to look down into that blue water. I really wanted to be able to experience feeling the gentle breeze coming across me as I zip lined across the water. And so even when they had you on the ledge and told you to push off, for a couple of seconds, my fear kept me there. But then I remembered my motivation. I remembered that I wanted to see that clear blue water. I remembered that I wanted to feel the combination of the sun and the breeze coming across my body. And so I took a deep breath and I pushed off. And guess what? It was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my entire life. So again, you don't have to wait for the fear to go away. You can do things afraid. And this week, we will talk about it. Now, my second time ziplining was a little bit different because I was thinking, I've already done this, so this is going to be easy. But this took place in Thailand. And in order to get to the launch place, we first had to walk across this like wooden sort of slatted bridge that went across a river. And we had a harness and everything. And initially, I was okay until the slats started getting further and further apart. And I began to think, oh my God, I was remembering that I had the harness on. I remembered that, you really want to do it. And to be truthful, my thought was I should turn around, but there were people coming in back of me. So I kept going. But little did I know when I got to the first platform, there was more. Before I could get to the place where I could actually zip line, I now had to walk across. I want you to imagine in a circus a tightrope. So it was these tight ropes, these metal ropes. They were not very thick at all. And in order to walk, you had to put one foot securely in front of the other. Now again, I had a harness on and there was no ladder. There was no way to come down. I just had to go across. And so what motivated me is I began to think about one of my grandchildren. One of my grandchildren, my daughter-in-law homeschools them. And when the children get finished with kindergarten, she has a graduation in the house. And so for his graduation, they had gotten him a cap and gown, and he did not want to wear the cap. And I remember talking with him, and he said that he did not want to wear it because he thought people would laugh at him because he thought he looked stupid. And I encouraged him to walk through his fears anyway and wear the cap. I reminded him of what he had accomplished, that getting through kindergarten was a really big deal. He had worked really hard, and he deserved this. So at the last minute, as he marched down the steps to our graduation music, he had his cap on. And so while I was walking over that tightrope, I began to think about him. And I began to think about him in my head, encouraging me, saying, go ahead, Grandma, you can do it. You can do it. Grandma, you got this. And all the words I had used to encourage him, I imagined him encouraging me. And guess what? I got to the next platform and I was able to zip line across this river, and it was fabulous. So your experiences may not necessarily involve zip lining. I don't know what it is that challenges you. Again, it could be something as simple as my example of not tasting a particular food because of how it looks. It may be, I don't know, whatever it is for you. But this week, we're going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about naming our fears, identifying our fears, and things we can do to walk through them. Until then, I want to remind you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are loved just as you are, and that you can heal and restore from whatever you have identified that you need to heal and restore from on purpose. See you tomorrow. Love each and every one of you. Bye-bye.